You're listening to Disbanded, a podcast exploring what stands in the way of abolishing houselessness in Dane County. Before we begin, two things. This episode contains casual profanity, and in case that's an issue for you, we will release a censored version next week on Patreon, which you can join for free at patreon.com/disbanded_pod. Speaking of Patreon, none of the unhoused people featured in this or prior episodes have been compensated for their work. And they should be. That's why Disbanded has launched a Patreon page. All proceeds will go directly to unhoused people who have shared their stories on this platform. We appreciate any support you can provide, whether that's sending a couple dollars our way or sharing this podcast with a friend. With that, let's dive in.
Being homeless it can be a choice or it could just happen to anybody.
This is Kyler, a formerly unhoused person.
It can happen to you tomorrow, bro. The way that the world is going right now, like, if you are in the situation of being homeless, $1,200 is a lot of money. That seems like $1 million. That seems like a goal so far away. On top of that, trying to get a job being homeless, like, fitting a standard.
Kyler has experienced recurring yet short-term houselessness.
Do I really want to start life over with everything that just happened? I look left, I look right. Looking left was, I see all these tall-ass fucking buildings, bro. I wanted to jump. I just lost my family. I lost the love of my life. I lost my kid. I wanted to jump. But I looked right, and I was like, life could be just better on the other side if I just gave it a try. I have not only been a client of the Beacon, but I've also worked in the nonprofit. I worked at Urban Triage at one point.
Urban Triage is a Black-led and Black-centered nonprofit empowering Black families and engaging community systems and resources to eliminate barriers in education, health, accessibility, and class.
And now I currently reside with Porchlight. So it's not like I'm not with, like, knowing what the process is of working with these nonprofits. Like, I was once a client of Tellurian's at their THP program.
Tellurian is an addiction treatment center in Madison. Their Transitional Housing Program, or THP, supports residents experiencing houselessness and searching for housing, employment, and behavioral health services.
My first time I ever experienced homelessness was 18 when I got out of the foster care system, and it was just like the church over on West Washington. I didn't know anything about it. I don't even think they probably had a day center, but I wasn't resourceful enough to figure it out because, I was 18. I was just freshly out of whatever, school and everything, didn't know shit about shit. It was in the middle of winter. I was 18 years old. I didn't know shit here. And at that time, it was 2010, 2011. So this is a whole different, criteria vibe here in Madison at that time. The transition for me was just appalling. I went straight to a hospital and just to be dropped off downtown, essentially.
With over a decade of experience, Kyler knows the ins and outs of the houselessness system, but it's never easy to navigate.
And it's hard for me right now because I'll be real with you, dude. I'm 33 years old. I have still seen the same people from that Grace of Gospel church at the Beacon. That's like 15 years ago, shorty. So you want to talk about chronic homelessness? When I'm saying I've seen some dudes from 15 years ago when I was 18, that's a real issue, yo. So for me, what do you think I'm thinking now? Bro, you've been homeless for 15 years. What's going on? Is it the system? What's against you? But now working in the field, I see what it is. The criteria base, Oh, have you been convicted of a crime or, are you a felony? Well, if you have any felonies, more than this many felonies in this many years, you're automatically exempt from this.
Kyler's story stitches together the many broken links in Dane County's houselessness network, revealing how the broader system built to resolve houselessness instead perpetuates it. Along with Kyler, you will hear stories of other unhoused people, as well as from allies from and beyond the service network.
In their mind, it's just like, all right, I got my food share so I can eat. I got my insurance just in case I get sick, I can go to the hospital. But how are you going to go to the hospitals when right now all the hospitals are booked right now too? Like, when you know the system, like, oh, let's go to Tulsa's Dane County Care Center, booked. Let's go to Solstice, booked. Let's go to the emergency room and claim suicidal, booked. Like, where are you going to go? There's nowhere to go.
Before establishing any connection to a service, many unhoused people are turned away by the lack of availability.
As a case manager, I've helped some of my clients when I was in that position get housing, and it takes months.
This is Sydney Verbavide from Comprehensive Community Services. You may remember her from episode 2.
When there's like wait lists for treatment, if you don't have mental health medications, maybe a program won't take you, and how do you get a prescriber when you don't even have a place to sleep? Like, how are you expected to go to an appointment when there's like such a long runway to get there?
You got to do a SPDAT form, basically, to get on a list to, for housing. So now you're waiting.
Service Prioritization Decision Assistance Tool, or SPDAT, is an assessment tool for determining which unhoused clients should receive assistance first.
Bro, I was on that waiting. I got homeless August 18th of 2023. I didn't sign a lease being on that criteria form until June 26th of 24. And I know there's people that have been on it longer.
When a client can access a waitlist rather than simply get turned away from an under-available service, they are faced with countless legal hoops to jump through. Navigating those legal obstacles often requires information that is difficult to access for those without proper technology or education.
But that's the thing also is they're not teaching you. You can get selected, but you still got to do the basic criteria. Do you have housing references? Do you have a rental history? Like it's against you still, because if you've been homeless for 2 years, how the fuck are you going to get a housing reference?
And once a client is able to enroll themselves into a service, they face barriers of physical inaccessibility.
When you already have limited resources, it is not just easy peasy. Buying a bus ticket, getting to the other side of town if you don't have transportation, finding someone to take you.
This is Amy Lindley, Development and Communications Manager at Tenant Resource Center, a nonprofit whose mission is to advocate for housing justice and thriving communities.
It's not easy going all over town, especially when you have the majority of your belongings with you to go to different organizations.
Kyler has had experience navigating systems like that since an early age.
Always carried myself in a way that knowing that I can, I've been through worse, and that I can actually, I was one of those kids in foster care that always had a backpack because I didn't know if I was going to the same home. You know what I mean? I bounced around that much. So I've always transitioned since 9 years old. So I was always trying to, I would like to say I was always in survival mode since 9 years old.
Few unhoused people share Kyler's background and encounter more challenges in navigating the system.
Those programs they help unhoused people, but not adequately.
This is Lindbergh from the Homeless Justice Initiative. You may remember him from our first 2 episodes. Homeless Justice Initiative aims to secure income-based housing and provide adequate, effective stability support to those experiencing houselessness.
Those programs, they work off-site. You have to call them or you have to go to their office rather than them being on-site. And so when they're not on-site, and someone who doesn't have, a homeless person who doesn't have a phone or a device to email with or cognition to navigate a bus schedule or money for gas or a bus ticket or a taxi. When they don't have any of that, there are all these barriers to getting the help they need.
With too many obstacles just to get to the service.
The clients aren't motivated. They don't seem motivated. But how are you going to be motivated when you're not? Now that they had a computer set up, now you got to give an ID to go use a computer. Some people don't have IDs.
Kyler had the ability to make it through those logistical and physical barriers, but upon accessing the services, they would often be unable to help.
Even the employees making $20 an hour, who wants to bust their ass trying to take care of another grown-ass man for $20 an hour? They're not getting paid enough.
Many services lack adequate resources to efficiently provide for their unhoused clients.
The facility was designed for approximately 125 to 150 guests per day. We're averaging 240 to 260. One day we had 305 in August. So just that alone, pure space, and that space is, I don't know if you've seen it, but the space, while it's accommodating, it was never designed. It was an office building that was converted for this purpose. So it was never designed to really fully serve individuals and do all that we're trying to do within the terms of the contract. So when you get to that level of individuals coming through there per day, it's just difficult, honestly, just to provide the basic level of services.
This is Sean Carney, Executive Director of Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities are a contractor for the Beacon, Madison's daytime shelter.
We are certainly open to anything that would improve, the operations at the Beacon or the whole issue around homelessness in general. So it's just, we're limited by space, and there's funding is always part of it, but I never lead with funding. It's really the space.
Whether it's the funding, space, or another issue, few houseless services are operating from a place of abundance. But even when they do, a singular service is rarely able to provide a complete solution.
To see where it is now, after that, like knowing that there's a couple day centers, there's, Safe Haven, there's the Beacon, I think it's really legit. But the question is it enough? Because that's only 2 places that people can go in a day. I mean, there's a lot more women at the Beacon too now, and they only get 2 places with like YWCA and Salvation Army. That's not enough for them, especially the ones with actual kids and things like that who need their whole support to build themselves up where they want to be.
Most services in Dane County are tailored to address one specific issue that their client may be struggling with, but those experiencing houselessness rarely face a single problem.
In terms of demographics of people seeing evictions, I think first and foremost is the racial demographic. Like more than half of the households who received eviction filings. Now, this is our 2024 report, but from our 2023 report, it was 51% of households who received an eviction filing were Black households. And we're also seeing, there's a significant portion of households who experience rental problems where one of the household members has a disability or one of the household members has a criminal record. There's also, for Latina households, there's a disparity for stable housing.
Majority of Dane County's unhoused population is multiply marginalized, and in order to stabilize themselves, they need the problem tackled from multiple ends at once.
A lot of people with chronic homeless issues don't even know what credit is. So here in Madison, we're a place that's all about fucking credit. If you ain't got credit, you ain't getting shit here. And so I can promise you, probably 80 or more % of those people at the Beacon are sitting less than 600, especially us in the African American community. We've had people that, sabotage our credit already. They use our socials for their own bills, or they might have an OG who might put a light bill in your name when you're 16 in high school. And there's things like that people don't understand too. Like, they already had a huge disadvantage after 18. Like, why am I 18 with a 320 credit score and I don't even know anything about credit?
And for multiply marginalized folks, which again make up most of Danes County unhoused population, there is further obstacles to connecting with the services.
So the Beacon just needs a lot more, as far as they do need more professional help. Like, they went through, the staff that I've seen there have been so in and out, but it's like, it's not just the staff. It can be the clients, but it's also just like, you got to have, like, how are you going to relate to someone when you're homeless at 60 to a guy or a person who may be 18 years old, fresh out of school, doing this for an experiment? Oh, I'm only here for my school things. Like, to me, that's gonna not only, like, you're not getting anywhere with this mature person, you're gonna traumatize a fucking student. You know what I mean? Throwing them into that field.
When it comes to working with unhoused clients, staff may not have the necessary knowledge or experience to meet their client where they're at, especially when the client is multiply marginalized.
You got a bunch of white motherfuckers here trying to basically coach black people how to make themselves better when they don't even know what it's like a day to be black. We don't have enough black advocates or a lot of black, professionals willing to help with the homelessness. I can only ask, like, if I'm a homeless person right now and you're my case manager, so I have no place to go, and you're driving back home to Lake Geneva, where your house is, why would I even try to build a relationship with you?
Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, is home to numerous lakefront mansions and is generally considered an affluent town.
You just told me, well, I don't know, sir. I don't know where I'm going to be able to put you the house tonight, but I know I'm going to go home to Lake Geneva. I just lost it. I'm going to be like, you live in Lake Geneva and you my case manager? Even when I'm down, I know I have enough decency for myself to be like, you will never be able to understand what I go through every day. I'm going to need somebody differently. I understand sometimes why people get a little distance and push off. It's because it's like, it's not because they don't want to try to understand. It's just like, how can they? You know what I mean? They will never be able to understand. Look what's going on in the big house. If you can't even get yourself to understand or put yourself in that person's shoes or that culture, it's like what I have told like my friends right now. You want to know what it's like to be homeless? You got a car, right? Go drive your car to the rest area. Sleep in your car. Do it for 3 days straight. See what your body and your mind does to you in that moment. Like, actually stay at the rest area for 3 days. I'm talking straight up. 72 hours. You can't leave. You have bathroom access. You got shower access right there, but you got to figure out how to make it from this rest area. A lot of my friends are like, why would I do that when I can go home? And I was like, that's what I'm trying to, that's the issue. You're not even trying to understand what the issue is. Do you know what it's like sitting in your car when it's 70 degrees in the morning and it drops down to 20 at night? When you wake up in the morning and you don't know where to use the restroom at, that's another thing to try to navigate. Everybody, we're human beings. We go to sleep and we need to release what we had the next day. Not having a resource for that. And then, like I said, when you have people that just don't understand that shit.
When services are unable to understand their client, they cannot provide them with adequate help.
I believe in gratuity. At the same time, my gratuity is being stomped down. Like, it's hard to be grateful when you could be, I know what you're capable of doing and you're not doing it. You could do more. Like, you're doing things that's sufficient to you. It's like, okay, I did this, you should be grateful.
This is Carvial, who also appeared in the previous episode.
And it's like, yeah, thanks, but could you stop doing what you think I need and do what I'm telling you I need? I need help like this. I'm tired of seeing you, and you just hand me what you want. And be grateful. No. How can I be grateful when you're a jerk? You steady handing me stuff that okay, how many coats can a person get before they turn into that person that's lugging all their whole life around,
Even when clients can reach a service that is able to understand them and provide adequate support, that one service will only tackle a part of the entire problem.
You got these people who are offering all these insurance to these people. You want them to sign up for a quota-based or audit-based because, everyone's like, well, you need to go to the Beacon, see the unsheltered shit, and see if you can get people to sign up for it so you can get so our insurance can get what they need as far as meeting quotas or meeting criteria. But you're not guiding these people like, hey, if you sign up with our insurance, this might help you get yourself into a residential in-care facility.
In order to actually stabilize their clients, the individual services must work together, but that rarely is the case.
When you're experiencing homelessness, I cannot picture a more frustrating thing than going to one organization and them saying, okay, we're on the east side. You actually have to go get this form signed by this organization on the west side.
Services tend to be physically apart from each other, and that prevents them from reaching their clients and from working together.
If you wanted to get people stabilized, you've got to have these other intensive programs involved, and more support from DHS as a whole to be able to get people connected with services. And if we don't have case management, the people who are using Beacon services who are very autonomous and cognitively intact, kind of a little bit savvy with doing paperwork, looking at different systems, those individuals, if they were highly motivated, could get stabilized without any case management services. But that is a huge minority of the population we serve. And getting connected with these services is quite lengthy and detailed.
This is Alicia Henning, volunteer manager at the Beacon. She appeared in our first 2 episodes.
Medical issues, mobility issues, mental health issues, substance use issues. Maybe they have a cognitive deficit or a learning disability. There's so many factors that go into getting somebody stabilized that you have to have case management in order to get all of those pieces to fit together.
Currently, there is no place providing a comprehensive service package, and as a result, Kyler and many other unhoused people are forced to be constantly on the go.
I think Beacon does a great job. They do what they can with what they have. Volunteers do a great job, prepping the meals, helping people shower and things like that, and doing the laundry and shit like that, But you don't want people to just resort on that, because in that field, I gotta go somewhere at noon. Why? I gotta get my lunch. Or, I gotta be at someplace at 8. I gotta check in and do a shower and shit. I remember crashing on a homie's couch and then knowing that, hey bro, I'll be right back. I gotta go do my check-in.
With issues of accessibility, resource shortage, and systemic disconnect, unhoused people find themselves in an environment that worsens rather than alleviates their conditions. This manifests most vividly at the men's shelter. A brief interjection. At the moment, I do not have enough information to compare the conditions between men's and women's shelter. Therefore, I am choosing to mostly reference the men's shelter. A separate episode will be dedicated to the women's shelter later on.
At that time in 2010 and 2011, Porchlight had they had the Grace of Gospel Church over on West Wash. Now knowing that was one of the first, homeless shelters that they've had here in Madison, it was a dark place for me. I was at a position, I was going in and out of jail, so it was going to a homeless shelter after going to jail was crazy to me, it looked the same. It just looked like a food hall with a bunch of bunk beds, and it was crammed. It was just very it was sickening. It was no security. You was you'd at the top bunk or the bottom bunk. You had the food hall, and you had a little community room that's not even as big as this.
The room Kyler is referring to is roughly 15 by 10 feet.
And on top of that, you got almost close to 200 people in here, by the way.
The systemic scarcity of the service network creates a physically and mentally degrading environment.
I believe that we need the Department of Health to be in all these places and see things like the men's shelter where there's still bugs there from when they had a net. They were infected with gnats, to where they had to close down the bathroom for a week. No more showers there for a week.
This is Ed, a resident of Porchlight. He has asked to remain anonymous, so his voice has been edited.
And I've also seen some more of these creepy crawlers going across the floor. You don't know if they're lice or what they are. And I myself, this is embarrassing, came down with lice. And I went through some real hell to get treated for that. An embarrassment.
It gravitates already in a slippery slope, if you know what I mean. The odds are against you no matter what. From going into the shelter, as a person, your dignity and your pride's already fucking shot. You're already whatever your situation is, if you know you are going to a homeless shelter to sleep that night, you're already in that mindset of damn, this is fucked up. This is where I'm at. This is what I got to do with myself. So think about everyone that's already doing that and having to, like, now they have to make something of themselves.
Degrading environments create a sense of despair among many of the people experiencing houselessness.
Already being kicked down in the mud, you don't even know if you can shower every day like you used to. And that's another thing that I had to really teach myself when I was homeless was the essentials of everyday being. Brushing your teeth, washing your face, and taking a shower, that shit's so important to your mental health, dude. There is nothing like taking a nice cold shower or hot shower after a long-ass day. Already having on your mindset, I'm going into this dirty-ass shelter. I feel dirty as fuck already, so it's going to corrupt your mind and you're just going to feel dirty.
It's like being in your own Groundhog Day movie. Some people say it that way.
It's just a repeat. I'm watching the cycles repeat. Bill Murray, Groundhog Day. You're doing the same day over and over again.
When perpetual despair cycles through the service system, it creates a culture of desperation.
So imagine if I wasn't going to be proactive. Imagine if I fell deep and I didn't have the drive. What if I lost it? Bro, I'd still be in that motherfucker right now. And I've seen people from in there from last year that are still there. It's so hard seeing people, and like you could just see the people who are trying, and then they just like one bad day or one bad phone call. It's like they look forward to, because you are looking forward to the small things at that point. You're hoping like, shit, CDA just picked up my application, or I just got a call from Porch Life for a 202 apartment.
It gets kind of shit. It gets stressful whenever there's negative things going on around you.
This is Jack. You may remember him from the previous episode.
It just gets kind of scary sometimes. You get scared, and also like when you get sick, and you're sick, and then it's like, okay, I've got a fever. I'm sick. I'm down. Like also living at the shelter, and so I'm supposed to be applying for a job. I'm supposed to be doing this, and it's just like you're so mentally exhausted and worn out. It's hard to get that step up to like just to go and to get the job, to feel motivated enough to just like to do what you need to do. Like some days you don't even want to shower, just because you're just beat down from just what's going on around you.
The houselessness services most readily accessible get their clients stuck, focused on survival, and block their ability to envision a better future.
You can sense people right away, not just by reading their faces, but when you read some of these people's faces, just look at them for 1 second. They're haunted. They're these beat up old guys in chairs or with walkers, and they probably think this is how I'm going to die.
People at the shelter, like, it's not a place where people can like heal or can rise above. I mean, they basically keep you as down as you can between one thing and the other.
This is Peter.
I managed to get 105 for a few years. I was first level programmer and career, semi-decent career. You think everything is going well, you get promoted, and then all of a sudden things fall apart. Going to the shelter is the worst thing in my opinion. Like, I've been doing better in the last year where I decided not to go to the shelter even though I was camping, and I even got in trouble with the law for camping, but at least I wasn't between people that were always doing drugs and always negative and stealing and aggressive.
At the Beacon, people are going to try to steal your shit. People find out you have interviews like this, they're going to try to steal your phone for whatever purpose. Like, just to hold you back down. Like, if, like, and God forbid, don't lose your fucking wallet.
What happened to me there and anybody there who's tried to live there is it's rampant, almost non-stop drug traffic there, which is to say that all the noise that comes in with these hopped up people coming in any time of the day or night, even if you wanted a simple nap in the morning or afternoon, you're lucky to get one. At night, forget it.
The culture of substance use, theft, and aggression that Peter, Kyler, and Ed describe is a consequence of the systematized despair unhoused people acquire while working through the service network.
I mean, I don't drink, but I've done other things, and luckily I'm over with it. But I've been there where like you needed to just shut down your brain, so to speak. I mean, it's sad, but it's some part understandable. Problem with most people is like those social security checks or the money that they make, it goes in non-productive. I mean, it is spent in ways that are not productive at all. And if they have families or kids, I mean, they should make sure it goes to them, not to their own. It's unfortunately sad, but if you don't have anything in life and the situation is so bad at the shelter, I mean, unfortunately it creates a need for something else. Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be like that, but I mean, it's almost like they know that those checks are basically, even the EBT food stamp money, most of it, I would say, goes for drugs.
Unhoused people have no space for respite, and their despair spills back into the services.
Beacon staff go through a lot as far as clients. Clients treat them like shit there, yo. And y'all could at least assist them in a way that they can feel appreciated doing what they do as work too, because it just seems like y'all sending them out to the wolves. Their security guards are scared of the people, bro. They don't want to get spit on and cut up and all this shit. Like, there's like a lot of risk to it, like, you know. And the police presence doesn't do anything but put fear in irate people even more.
The frontline service staff are not at fault for majority of the system's flaws, but they're the ones experiencing the spillover of despair.
With having 300 people show up, or let's say it's an average of 250, 100 more than we expect, just taking care of the basic services has become very difficult and demanding. And it's also where the cost has come in. I mean, the costs to run the Beacon, the first year of the contract, back in 2017, I think it cost $650,000, and now, as I just told you, it's going to be close to $2 million this year. So all those variables come together, and it does create, I recognize it does create a lot of tension.
When sustained for long enough, the tension initiates a cycle of mistreatment.
And then you say, oh, well, you can use our address, but then the mail don't ever get delivered. And I mean, when Madison, it seems like if they know that you have the Aberg address on your ID, denied, no matter what. If you have the Beacon as an address, denied for your apartment automatically because you're using a homeless person's. But it's like, well, where else am I supposed to get my mail? If I don't have family, support, and friends, and this is all I can reside to, like, it's like almost what I have to pay for a P.O. box to feel equal. Some people can't even make it in because of course, you had the criteria of you got to be there at a certain time. If you didn't make it there at that certain time, whatever. And I mean, you might get a more sympathetic guy who might give you some leniency, but everyone's so hardcore on the homeless that it's like, nah, you didn't make the deadline. You didn't make the time. So you sleeping outside is what it felt like. Because that's initially what it was. Like, you know you're supposed to be here at, let's say, 7. You got here at 7:05. Now, I can be cool and be kind and let you stay, but, you know, they look at you little, oh, well, you've been a nuisance and a person in the past. You know better. No, we ain't going to accept you. You ain't going to.
As support systems become worn out by sustained tension, they lose structure and stability that prevents mistreatment, whether from clients or the staff.
I've heard of bad fistfights breaking out at the safe haven place as well. And then I've heard of nasty things of how the women are treated at the Salvation Army women's place.
What bothers me is that when the staff got a personal problem, they reflect that onto the inmates. Like, literally straight to the inmates, the staff starts to act like tough, just trying to make us feel like they got the power about everything, and they gonna decide when you gotta shit, when you gotta smoke, when you gotta do everything.
This is Lorenzo, former client of Porchlight.
They cross the line because it's not just talking to you, it's grabbing to your arm, saying go there, or things like that. Like, that's excessive. That's what law enforcement is supposed to do on the right thing, but they are not law enforcement.
Beyond Kyler and Lorenzo, many other clients of Porchlight have reported abuse from staff at the men's shelter, and we will hear more on that in future episodes.
It's so much easier to ban a client to come back just because you don't want to deal with them anymore. And let's just be real. We as people, like, I don't want to deal with the shit. Ban. And it gets repetitive. Now, when you have these bans and these people, now they can't. When you get banned in the Beacon, you're like closing your door to a lot of resources.
The degrading environment perpetuates hostility from both staff and clients, and this cycle drowns those experiencing houselessness.
But it really sucks, man. I've heard no less than 4 people, probably 3 men, probably 2 women, who will just come out and tell you, I just want to die. They're suicidal. Yep. And I feel that way myself. But it's like the old song, I just keep hanging on. And a buddy of mine, 73 years old, 2 years older than me, suicidal. He's just had a shitload of real bad luck physically. Takes a shitload of meds. Some of them have messed him up.
The system does more than fail to uplift its clients. It pushes them down. In response, they begin to evade rather than connect with the system.
You go in there, your mind is like, what the there's people that are scared to go to the Beacon. Even as like, I used to, I was in the field, like, so I'd be like, hey, have you ever been to the Beacon? No, man, I drove past there, or I've been on the bus past it, bro. That, I don't know, that looks like too much. You know what? Look at all the money they just put into the new Central Library. It's a homeless club, G. And I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm like, that's a nice-ass fucking library, yo. It's a really nice library. But just you guys put all that money into a fucking library compared to just making something for the homeless? Because the homeless people are just going there now. It's not supposed to be for homeless. Yeah, but that's the miscue. Is like, well, we didn't do this for the homeless people. We did this for the library to make it for it's State Street, our Capitol Library, to make it nicer. Cool, but look at it. It's full of fucking homeless people. So help them out. Make them something around that area, shit.
Kyler could not tolerate the despairing conditions at the shelter and chose to live outside.
Like, what do? You resort to what you know, and that's just survival, dude. I walked around with a fucking hammock.
And of course, Kyler isn't the only one to have made that decision.
I was camping myself around Madison Parks, trying to keep clean, trying not to cause a dramatic action or draw attention. But as far as being able to have some rest, it's much better. The shelter is basically doing the opposite. You don't get rest, you accumulate more stress there.
At the same time, those who choose to leave the degrading service environments lose layers of support.
It was fucked up, bro. It was the hardest day for me mentally. I remember I went into the Beacon. I was freezing cold because it rained at 6 a.m. and I was dead asleep and it hit me. And I just called my dad and I was like, dude, I don't know if I can do this. They've been rooting for me and I'm just like, I think I might have to go. I don't know. It broke me down in a more humbling way. Because, I've seen Naked and Afraid, but it was real shit when you're just out there and you're like, where the fuck can I go at 6 a.m? It's cold. I can't just walk into a building. Also being homeless and realize where are you going to use the bathroom to defecate right in the morning? You know what I mean? That's super important in being in resourcefulness, knowing that just knowing small stuff of survival of where can you feel genuinely safe? You know what I mean? It's the highest thing because you just don't get that. I'm going to feel dirty all day. I'm going to force myself to go jump in this cold-ass dirty lake or some shit just to, feel clean, it's hard, in the summertime when I see people sleeping outside, and it's hot.
Kyler and Peter had the ability to sustain themselves through these challenges. But for demographics like the elderly, leaving the environment, however degrading it may be, is too dangerous.
We have some young vets, but we have some that's in their 80s that should not be on the street.
Where you'd think they'd put them more an assisted living,
something
hospice,
like that.
Something.
Yeah.
This is Lori and Robert.
I just watched 2 vets personally die in front of me over at the nighttime shelter, just right before Christmas.
Basically, you accumulate more stress being at the shelter. And people that realize it will try to camp somewhere or sleep on the road, which might be better for their mental sanity, but then, of course, you end up having more people on State Street.
Those who are able to leave the degrading environments struggle to find a space of their own.
And it doesn't look good if there is people sleeping on the side of the street or in those cubbies, fortunately. But I understand their decision, and as I said, I was camping myself.
Most environments outside of services are not designed for supporting unhoused people and become degrading, just like this system those unhoused people are trying to get away from.
And I noticed that the police was doing almost like a game where, like, I'll send you to the next block for a few days, then I'll send you to the next block. Instead of sending them one block next to the other where they go in circle, like, why don't you try to find them a place where they can actually be? It seemed like they were just trying to put a patch on the issue, but not something definitive or something that it was going to solve the problem.
Whether within or beyond service environments, unhoused people are met with lack of aid at best and oppression at worst. And that reinforces the degrading cycle once more.
Unfortunately, State Street, when I came here 20 years ago, it was a bit better than today. Nowadays, in the last 2 years, I noticed State Street, there's a lot more chaos and stuff going on because of, unfortunately, homeless people, most of them I know. But it's not nice, I would say. I used to like State Street much better. Now there is fights, there is people stealing a lot more, and I really don't understand why that is, because one might think we are all in the same boat. Why do we steal from each other? But that's the reality of homeless people.
As both the service system and broader communities fail to respond to the cycle of deterioration, isolation becomes the solution to houselessness.
There's so much more we could do, but we're focused on building jails, building bus routes and shit, bro. It makes sense of, all right, we'll spend the monies on a new jail, target our homeless to put them in that cycle, because that's all it does. My buddy got arrested for trespassing the other day. Do you get arrested for trespassing now? As a homeless person? He was just walking through a lot. He was just walking through a lot at a time that he wasn't supposed to, and they arrested him for it. And I'm like, okay, what's that do for your guys' money, knowing that this person, and putting him through a court process? So this person is homeless, and you want to put them in a system where they don't have money, give them a record that makes them even harder for them to succeed. The Salvation Army's right there, but it's so discreet, all you see is Salvation Army.
Salvation Army is Dane County's overnight women's shelter.
But if you go in the parking lot, you'd be like, oh shit, this is some other shit, you know?
Yeah, you don't want to walk in.
Right. MG&E had to build those fences around the beacon and around there, so it looks, like you said, it looks hidden almost. It's right behind the little Korean barbecue that's painted discreetly by that house that's the same color as the restaurant. It is in the cut, and then you don't get to walk in the front door because it just says the Beacon on East Wash. You see how it just says the Beacon? So you would have to go on Main Street to be like, oh, that's the homeless place.
The design of the service system, which includes the car seal complex, ceases to reintegrate people into society and instead insulates them from it.
People don't see half of the stuff that happens at the Beacon because we're in the back of the building, and it's like a fenced-in little area, so nobody gets to see everything. There's fights every day. There's like pretty much people would go into like bad behavior. Like next thing you know, a fight breaks out.
This is Tyler, a 22-year-old trans man.
Half of the people don't see what's going on at the Beacon because, like I said, we're in the back and it's all fenced off and caged off, and nobody gets to see half of the pain that we go through. Yeah, people see ambulances and cops leaving, but do they know why? That's the question. Let it sink in. Do they know why the cops and the ambulances are there 24/7? See, half of the people don't understand what we have to go through on a daily basis. See, me preferably, I was told that homeless people will never find love.
We know from the county, who released some numbers a couple of years ago when we asked for these numbers, that 1 in 7 people enter the Dane County Jail homeless.
This is Pearl from Madison Homeless Union, a collective providing direct aid to unhoused people.
At that time, the number of the jail was about 750. That was during the pandemic.
While I was unable to verify the number Pearl provided, nationally, 1 in 7 people entering jail are houseless.
That's over 100 people that enter the jail homeless, and a lot of those people can't afford bail. So when they sit there for months waiting for their court dates, they lose their job, and then they face an eviction. And since they're in jail, they can't go collect their belongings, and all their belongings get set out on the curb, and they've lost then everything, even if the court might drop something. And I've seen this before. I knew somebody who sat for 5 months, who was homeless, and had a camper. And because that camper sat for 5 months, it was then infested with mice and was no longer inhabitable by the time Dane County Jail said, oops, sorry, I guess we're going to drop all the charges 5 months later and release you at 5 in the morning on a Sunday in the dark with nothing.
Isolation is not a solution to houselessness, but it both hides and perpetuates the deteriorating despair that unhoused people are subjected to constantly. For Kyler, navigating all of this meant insulating from the label of homeless.
When I'm going in, hey, are you guys hiring? I look like a person that could work, so I presented myself in a way that I wasn't homeless. But then when I got the job, I let my GM know, like, hey, man, I'm kind of going through a little transition right now. Like, I'm just, bouncing around, trying to get my footing, had a bad breakup, X, Y, and Z. When you communicate it that way, people can understand you.
Kyler had the resources to appear and act like a housed person, but most cannot detach themselves from that label as easily or consistently and face paralyzing stigma.
People look at us and then they're like, oh, you're homeless. That's not quite what I had in mind. That's just, yeah, okay. I mean, I walk down the street and I get weird looks all the time. People think I'm weird. I mean, when I say, hey, I'm homeless, or like, hey, I need a little bit of help, I'm kind of like short on something, or I don't know if you guys can help, I'm kind of homeless, I didn't get paid yet, I have a job, and then they're like, oh, you're homeless. And then we get weird looks.
From what I understand, Madison is built around the university. And if you don't fit in the university, or if you don't fit in the rich, we don't want you here.
So, with all of this in their way, how do people survive for houselessness in Dane County?
It's the way I was raised. I was raised to, care about people and worry about people and try to do whatever I can for them, no matter what. You give your last dollar to them if they need it or whatever, or the shirt off your back.
Here I said, just getting out of the hospital on Monday from open heart surgery.
Yeah.
And you have to give these people, that don't give up. There's still hope out there.
Mm-hmm.
And give them that positive attitude and, to carry that out. Hey, come on. Don't let this give up on this yet. There is still life.
Yeah, and I just found out that I have a bunch of blood clots in my lungs. And, I mean, it was hard coming down here. But you know what? I did it. And I'm actually very proud of myself because I get to speak out for everyone.
If you knew how homeless people network, man, and the connections they know and like all that, because they all link together, they commute together.
While unhoused people find ways of sustaining themselves, whether within or beyond the service network, survival is not the solution they want.
When we're talking about a population of homeless, less than 800 people in Dane County, which Madison holds by itself 250K people alone. That's not a lot of people, bro. We got so much money and y'all can't house 800 other people. This is the North, bro. We the North of the North. We have the money and the reason. We have one of the best colleges in the nation, best supported schools, but we can't put money in for 800 fucking people. We have all types of shit that we could fucking do, bro. And the thing about Wisconsin is we usually do that kind of shit. We're all about supporting locals and rebuilding for our state alone. So, and Dane County's really big on it. So it's like, what happened?
Thank you for listening to this episode of Disbanded. If this was a valuable experience for you, please share it with a friend. If you got no friends, you can support us financially on Patreon. If money is tight, say hi to us when you see us. Thanks again.